Welcome to the Hourly Podcast. In today's episode, Anand Gala, founder and managing partner of Gala Capital Partners, shares his journey in the restaurant industry and his current focus within the investment firm. He emphasizes the importance of leadership and building relationships with hourly workers, and also discusses the staffing challenges within different franchise brands and the need for continuous learning and staying close to operations. Throughout the episode, Anand highlights the value of hard work, the challenges that they face as being opportunities for growth, and the influence of great leaders within his own life. Enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by JoJo, an AI virtual recruiter powered by Sprockets. Designed for the hourly workforce, JoJo works 24/7 to source, screen, and schedule interviews with the best applicants for your business. JoJo helps reduce employee turnover and time spent hiring so you and your team can focus on other important tasks. To learn more, head to sprockets.ai/JoJo.
Okay, perfect. Well, Anand, thank you so much for being on the podcast here today. You and I have known each other now for about a year, maybe a little bit more. You're somebody that whenever I speak to you, I get great advice and always inspires me in different ways. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. So for somebody that doesn't know your name or your company, give us an overview from 10,000 feet of who you are and what you do today.
Sure. Well, look, my background is a real simple one. Immigrant family. My brother and I were born here in the U.S., and they decided to start a business when we were young. And whether we liked it or not, in a family business, and most typically in an immigrant family business, everybody works. And so we were exposed to the business from a very young age. And whether we liked it or not, and I think it's one of those things that you don't in the beginning, but then you get good at it and you learn to love it. That's essentially what happened. And coming out of university, I worked within the family business, and then shortly thereafter, branched off on my own and became a franchisee and developer for Applebee's and Del Taco and those two brands when I was about 25 years old, and subsequent to that with Famous Dave's Barbecue. And, it was a great run for 20 plus years, and ended up selling all of those businesses. And now really focused as an investment firm where we can really bring our skills and our experience and our capital to work for what we consider to be adolescent franchisor brands. That tends to be from 50 to 250, 350 units, where we think we can help to bring a lot of value, a lot of experience, a lot of discipline to help them avoid the challenges that so many small emerging adolescent franchisors have. The second part of what we focus on is in software specifically focused on multi-unit businesses. And restaurants tend to be the largest part of that, but many of the software solutions are applicable to things like hotels and gas stations and doggy daycare and banks and all sorts of different businesses if it's multi-unit.
Yeah, very exciting. And so bring us through kind of the early days, right? Being a franchisee so young, right? And despite having experience in that industry, I'm sure that was a little bit intimidating, right? And a lot of people who listen to this podcast are first-time franchisees, director of ops, general managers, managing, of course, the hourly workforce. What's some general advice you'd give those people that are in a new role and looking to make an impact?
The first thing I always start with is understand that you're a leader. And there's a big difference between a leader and a manager. A manager is going to have to spoon feed people quite a bit. A leader inspires them to do their best work, to understand that they are part of a much bigger purpose, and all of their contributions are valuable and have an impact on the overall outcome of the organization. That doesn't mean that you don't teach people. You do. You still have to teach people. But a leader learns how to inspire others, and it's far more scalable. And I encourage everybody to see themselves as a leader, not just a manager.
Yeah, that's great advice. And when you say that, when you say those sentiments and you tell that story, is there anyone that comes to mind to you that was a great leader that helped you along your journey over these past 25 years?
There are just too many to even tell you. it could be someone whom I had a very early experience with and candidly didn't realize how big of an impact they had on me until I got much older. One such person, I'll leave my family out of it because everyone's family is such a big influence on who they become, and there's no one more so that had an impact on me than my family. But I'll give you a different example. There's a gentleman by the name of Phil Hickey, and Phil Hickey is a dear friend, a mentor. I'm very close with him today, and he saw something in me as a young man and just took the time to ask me a lot of questions and then follow up a month or two later. There's another by the name of Alwyn Lewis, whom when I was in Jack in the Box, this was the original family business. I must have been 10 or 11 years old, but he always took the time to see me and come over and say, "Hello, sir, how are you?" And he would always, show me so much respect. And I was only a 10 or 11-year-old child, but I
Mhm.
would attend meetings with my family, whether it was a regional meeting or whatever it is. And he
Yeah,
always took the time to explain things to me. And,
right.
the list goes on and on and on. There's no shortage of people whom I have been the beneficiary of. As the old saying goes, I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Right. Yeah, and it's so inspiring to hear that you've had so many influential people, family and not, to have a positive impact on your growth. And I think as frontline leaders, you have such a big impact on primarily the hourly workers that come in. A lot of times, you're their first boss, right? You are their first manager. And what are some key things for frontline managers you recommend to or ways that they can lead their hourly workers?
Well, step one is to continuously learn more about them. Developing
Mhm.
a relationship is one of the foundational building blocks of becoming a great leader. And you can't lead others if you don't have a relationship with them in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to know, every last detail about people, but you should have some level of connection to them. That, candidly, is just a function of mutual respect and really acknowledging that everybody has a role, everybody contributes, and you need to build great teams. So I start with respect, I start with relationships. When you can build strong relationships with people, uh, they'll stick around no matter how hard the work is. And the next thing I would say is don't shy away from hard work. In life, it is the hard work that teaches you the most. It is the times where you feel like you are at a disadvantage or you're feeling a little demoralized because it's just it's so inundating. There's so much work to do. But
Right.
candidly, those times of challenge are what build character and build experience, and develop a great relationship. And they prove to your supervisors and those above your supervisor that you're capable of doing what needs to be done. So those are some of the initial things that come to mind.
Yeah, and so much to pull on there, right? And I know that through our research and the book, one of the common threads is a challenge of multi-generational workforce, where you
Yes.
have Gen Alpha, which is now entering, which is such a new, unique generation, just as they all are, have their own fingerprints. But then you have baby boomers that are managing them, and it's a very challenging thing to manage as an operator, and I'm sure that you see this from your chair. But what mitigates that risk and what makes that better is simply building rapport with from manager to hourly, no matter who they are, to just better understand them. Because I think a lot of times the temptation is I'm a manager, I'm going to run things my way. But in your philosophy, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's build a relationship, aggressively learn to understand them. You don't have to know everything about them, but that will give you the tools to manage them properly, keep them happy, and ultimately stay at work. Is that correct? Am I getting that? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. And it's not just that that people will blindly follow you simply because you built some form of a relationship with you, but at least now there's a conduit through which you can effectively communicate with them, and they feel comfortable coming to you because you have some semblance of a relationship where they can say, I don't understand why you're asking me to do it this way. Maybe they've got
Mm,
a great idea. Maybe they'll bring it up to you. But if they don't feel like they have a relationship, then they feel like they're just a cog in the wheel. And why should they bring great ideas or new ideas or alternative ways of doing things to you when you don't show any interest in them? Or maybe there's no mutual respect. People don't feel that it is incumbent upon them to help make change happen.
yeah. And what are some ways that so decorated in your career and been at almost every single level of the organization? So working inside the unit, being a franchisee, then now being the franchisor and the private equity behind that. How have you kept a pulse on that hourly worker that in a lot of ways stays the same? What your life has changed significantly and your time can't be inside of a restaurant every single day. What do you think about that?
I think it's critical that you're always taking time to stay close to what is happening in the business, whether
Mm,
that's hitting the drive through and understanding how long things take, whether that's working a shift, but to periodically do that and get back into the operations and be close to the field operations, whether it's above store, maybe there's a new technology rollout and you're wondering why you're not getting the results you want or why is it taking
mm,
so long? Well, go do inventory with your manager. Show them that
mm.
you know what's going on, you know how it's done, and you actually want to see how it's all working in the field. These things
Right.
only take a few hours, and you don't have to do them all the time. But it does help to build a significant rapport with your team. And I'll tell you that your team will talk. One manager will talk to the next, to the next, to the next. Did you know that our company CEO or our VP of XYZ was in here at 6 a.m. this morning so that we could do inventory faster? Or, hey, they worked the drive through with me, or they were working the fryer, or whatever it may be. Or, hey, they came in and they picked up the broom and the dustpan and they went and swept the parking lot, and
Mm,
that's so cool that they care so much and
right.
that they know what's going on. So it's really important to stay close to it. But you're right, you can't do it all the time, especially as you grow and as you scale. Those opportunities become fewer and fewer.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so interesting about you and your history and your business today is you have a pretty eclectic group of franchises, right? You have, and you can mention some of what the individual brands are. I'm sure everybody would love to hear that. But talk to me a little bit about like the difference in staffing challenges from maybe one brand to another.
Yeah, I think that this is just reflective of the ebb and flow of what is in vogue and maybe what is not.
Yeah.
And that changes, year to year, decade to decade, etc. So some of the brands we operate range anywhere from Muya Burger, which is a fast casual, better burger, burger fries and shakes concept.
Mm,
Um, and that is, inline end cap. And most recently, we just opened the chain's first drive through, and we'll open a second in just a few weeks. And
congrats.
then, thank you. And then we've got Rusty Taco, which is your gourmet, authentic neighborhood taco joint. And we acquired that business from Inspire Brands. They're extraordinarily good at running very, very large enterprise scale brands in the multi-thousand units. But this became a little bit of an orphaned brand under their umbrella. And our
Mm,
specialty is, as I mentioned, smaller adolescent brands. And so this fit perfectly into our portfolio. And then
mm,
it'll change again when you get to something like Dunn Brothers Coffee, which is a coffee chain where we serve fresh roasted coffee. In many of our stores, we actually have a coffee roasting machine, and we roast our coffee there on a regular basis. Whatever you're drinking in your cup was probably roasted within the last 5 or 6 days.
wow.
It's just an amazing concept, and so each concept will appeal to a different workforce. Each concept will require different skills and training, and so I think it's just different. It's just different. But yes, you're right. It's very eclectic, and we get exposure to a variety of different people coming from all walks of life that are interested in one thing or another.
Yeah, so interesting, and congratulations and all of that. I mean, I know you say it so elegantly, and you talk about it so well, but I know how much work and complexity there is behind all of that. And just out of curiosity, for those listeners in South Carolina, are there any locations of any of those brands here in the Southeast? I can't. Can't think of any.
I don't think we have any in South Carolina, but if anybody's interested, please do reach out. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, love it. All right, good to know. All right, so last question I ask every single guest this, but I think I already know the answer, but it's we can reiterate it just to keep the continuum going. What was your first hourly job, and were you
Mhm.
fired from that job, or did you decide to leave on your own accord?
Yeah, well, my first hourly job was actually working for my parents in their first Jack in the Box restaurant in 1983. And I know that that was my first hourly job. First of all, my memory serves me well. I'm old, but I'm not that old. But I was cleaning out the garage a few months ago, and I found one of my early pay stubs from that year. And at that time, you were allowed to pay your family members below minimum wage. And so I was paid 2.35 an hour, even though the minimum wage was 3.15 an hour. Which, candidly, as a 9-year old, I didn't know the difference, and it was great to have some pocket money and have my own savings account, and it was still a great experience.
So I'm assuming that we went off to school, you started your own locations, you just naturally ascended out of it, or is there a funny or inspiring story of you getting fired by a family member?
Uh, I'm sure that I was fired over and over and over again, but because your family would just show up again and you just do the work, and
Yeah.
so it just
You're
sort of
gonna see
works
him in the
itself out.
living. You're gonna see him in the living
That's
room.
right.
So you might as well show up. But no, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. If somebody wants to learn more about your brands or your business, what's the best way to do that? Is there a specific website, a LinkedIn site? Where would you direct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. You can find a lot of information about the firm and about our brands and what we do at galacapitalpartners.com, or you're always welcome to just look me up on LinkedIn.
All right, perfect. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll have to do a part 2 or part 3 in the next few years.
Fantastic. Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.